Afternoon, everybody. Hope that you're all well. Welcome to episode 9. I hope that you guys are having a great weekend so far. Let me just type this in. Okay. All right. Just give me a second. Hey, nice to see you guys joining in. Let's just wait for Kirsty to join quickly. All right, let's just, in the meantime, tell me how you guys are doing so far. I hope that you guys are having a good day so far. Okay, I see Kirsty has just joined us. Okay, so let me add her in and we're ready to go. Okay, give me a second. Here we go. Enjoy the show. 1 second. Hello, Kirsty. How are you?
How's it going?
Whoop. Connection's a bit slow.
Oh,
Hang on. We're just struggling a bit with the network. Can you hear me?
yes. Can you hear me?
Okay. That's a little bit better. That's much better. How are you doing?
I'm good, Tafa. How are you doing?
I'm well, thanks. Thank you very much for coming onto the show. It's exciting to have you here. I know we've been talking about this episode for quite a while. So I'm
Very
really
excited.
keen for this conversation. So thank you so much for coming onto the show. Kirsty, for those who don't know you, who are either watching now live or listening to the podcast afterwards or watching the YouTube video, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, what did you study, what do you do, and as well as how you're doing as well.
Well, let's start off with how I'm doing. I'm doing great. I had quite a busy day, and weirdly enough, this is coinciding with a takeover that I'm doing on a platform called the Aesthete Experience.
Yeah.
It's a platform that promotes the visual arts of KZN.
Okay.
So, and they're hosting a musician as their takeover host, so it's quite cool actually. So I'm excited, and in a good space.
That's amazing. So you released a music video recently, which I saw.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that, actually.
Oh my goodness. Wow. So let's talk about the music first of all. So
Yes.
I collaborated, well, Akeem Jones, a rapper from Cape Town, asked me to be a part of the song that he wrote. And we started this process last year where we were just recording and just, experimenting with what I have to offer in terms of my voice and my violin. And I had no idea, I'll tell the story forever and ever, that I had no idea that I could write a verse in literally 5 minutes.
Wow.
Because
that's
I think
insane.
Right? I mean, a lot of people that know me closely know that I'm a perfectionist. So it gets the better of me sometimes when it comes to composition processes, but it was probably the biggest breath of fresh air in music that I've experienced with Akeem, to be able to write something like that. And the lyrics themselves are about thinking beyond the struggle of hustling in Cape Town.
Yeah.
And also being able to envision a future for yourself. The song is called Conversations.
I saw that.
I probably should have started off by saying that, but there's just so much to say about this process. Anyway, the song is called Conversations by Akeem Jones, featuring myself, Kirsty Adams, and my very good friend Sloan produced the song.
Awesome.
so in terms of the music video, we were looking for something that would obviously visually depict what we're trying to say. And we ended up with basically like a crime scene where I'm the villain. I'm the villain, and he is the hero trying to rescue his friend from me. Anyway, the point is that there is conversation that is held and confrontation and being able to voice what you want in life. So that's my take on it. I don't know what Akim's take on it is, but I'm guessing it's the same. And yeah, you can find that article about it actually in Cape Town, etc. Yeah.
Okay, I actually haven't. Well, I'll actually go take a look at that. I would encourage anybody watching this and listening to this to do the same as well. So, Kirsty, tell us a little bit about you, right? So, what's a typical day in your life, right? So, I mean, what's Kirsty Adams' life like? I mean, what is a typical sort of day in your life? How does it start? How does it end? How does it go? How does it ebb and flow as well?
Gosh. So my brother's actually watching this right now, and I'm pretty sure he would say that Kirsty's life is actually chaotic. but if I had to tell you how I temper that, it is definitely by starting off with meditation.
Okay.
And a good healthy breakfast. And also just checking through my diary as to what I've written the night before, as to what I have to do for the day. And then it's either a combination of practicing my instrument, writing songs, and also engaging with my my audience on my platforms and on my my platforms, including my own and the platform that I just started with my amazing co-creator Ninine Vema called Femme Cape Town, which is
we'll talk a little bit about
we'll
that
get
one.
there.
that one is a topic in and of itself, right? So we'll get to that one.
Totally.
That's really cool. So how many instruments do you play? I mean, I've seen you play a violin. People saw you play a violin with the intro to this little show, which I must say was like amazing. I thought that was incredible.
I was wondering if anyone ever like attempted that, because I don't know if you've had like musicians on the show. Anyway,
this is my first. You're my first musician. I mean, I've had people who do play an instrument, but you're my first sort of outright musician, right? So it was quite cool that we did something a little bit different to actually intro that as well. So it was really cool, really awesome.
Oh yeah. Gosh, I actually forgot the question. What is the question?
Oh, right. Which instruments do you play?
Instruments. Okay. Yeah, it's been that busy today. So the instruments that I play is so I guess I would call myself first and foremost a violinist. But I do sing as well.
Okay.
I sing, and I also play piano. So I'm often accompanying myself with my often accompanying my voice with the piano. If I had to give you a little bit of like what I play on the side, just a little bit, I actually can dabble into a bit of drum playing.
Okay. Plot twist.
And guitar.
Oh, wow. I actually did play guitar once in my former life, probably about 10 years ago now.
Oh, Jesus. Do you remember what song you played?
Oh my goodness me. I did rock school, so I did the whole exam sort of route and everything, but it was I can't remember for the life of me what song I played. But
rock school is life.
It's quite difficult, I think, to play an instrument, and I think I have a lot of respect for anybody who does sort of go down that path. But let's talk a little bit about lifestyle of a musician, right? So let's talk about your sort of perception of that. So what is the sort of typical lifestyle of a musician, and what is your sort of lifestyle within that as well?
Good question. I would definitely link it to what I said earlier about how a typical day in Kirsty's life involves, either a combination or selection of practicing your instrument, writing your songs, and also managing yourself. That's a big part. I think that's the part that some musicians almost fall in the trap of not seeing, which is typical, especially if you're coming from studying music like I did. So you're focused on just honing your craft as a musician, as a composer, as a performer. But there's also that meta level of knowing how to manage yourself, which takes a lot of skill. And for me, being in that lifestyle, this is why my life is chaotic. It's because there's so much to manage around it. There's so many hats to wear. And after a while, you feel like you're supposed to be a master at wearing all these hats at some point. But at the same time, you still feel like, there's still something better that I can do in this area. And here's another part, technology is ever evolving. And to be able to be relevant to that is something that needs to be learned and acquired, a skill to be acquired as a musician as well. Whether you're specializing in acoustic music or electronic music, to be able to put yourself on a platform like this is very important, so that people actually know what you're about and know what you do on a daily life, and how you invest your time in this passion, in this purpose.
So what are sort of some of the biggest mistakes or most common mistakes that you've seen musicians make early on into their career? Be it careers is shooting off as successful as possible, it's skyrocketing and it's exponentially going forward. But what are sort of the biggest sort of common mistakes that you've seen musicians make in that sort of journey?
I'm going to make it simple and just tell you one mistake that pretty much overarches everything, and that is perfectionism.
Interesting.
Not being willing to fail. Do your work, perform, fail, and do it better next time. Because the sooner that can get into your head, the sooner you can get to that level of performing your best, your utmost best. And we're always growing. We're always not manifesting. We're always growing. We're always evolving as musicians. Whether it's practicing that scale every morning. You know what a scale is, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I still remember.
I'm just taking time to explain music technology. I mean, terminology, goodness, my words. Just understanding that you're ever evolving will take the focus around perfectionism away, and rather just knowing that you can better yourself every day. So that applies to literally every part of music. Practicing your instrument, writing your songs, just doing it every day. And some special people in my life have told me that in my darkest moments, where I just fell into the trap of perfectionism. So, and I'm blessed to have them.
Yeah, that's really good. That's really profound. And so converse to that, how do you sort of keep your feet on the ground when success comes your way? So in one end of the spectrum is, you might fail at something in that journey, but another side of the spectrum is success comes your way and it comes really quickly. It just happens, and all of a sudden now you're everybody knows who you are. Everybody, listens to your songs and all of that. How do you sort of keep your feet on the ground in that space?
I think keeping I'm obviously understanding this as being, like keeping yourself humble, which is very important. So I just like to know that I like to remind myself that the people that have been there since the beginning and that are still with me now are the people that I need to thank, be grateful for.
Yeah.
And I need to keep them. I need to remind myself that they're there and there to stay.
That's really good.
And those are the people that I can lean on. Those are the people that know my insides and outsides very well enough to fall into their embrace and to be able to just be human, because the rest of the world at this point is seeing you as some kind of superhuman. And you need those people that can, make you feel human, and that's family, that's best friends from high school, that could even be someone that you've met now that understands what you're going through, and that you just feel that really big connection with, and only you and yourself can tell who that is.
That's really good.
That's the one thing that keeps me grounded. The other thing that keeps me grounded is just prayer. I have faith in God, and it's something that keeps me going.
Love that.
And also what also keeps me grounded is looking back to where I came from. And comparing it to where I am now. And to be able to commend yourself on such a journey is a very fruitful thing to do. Because knowing that you're able to do that means you can do amazing things in the future as well.
Yeah, absolutely agreed. That's really, really good. And would you say that being a musician has changed you as a person, for better or for worse? Slightly tricky question, right? But do you think it has changed you as a person, or have you become the person that you are through your music?
I mean, I think if you look back on this conversation and how it started, how it's commenced, music is a part of who I am. But what has really impacted me in terms of my evolution within what I do in music is my mental state. And because everything is a mental game.
Yes.
And my view is that you can have a passion for something so big, but your mental state can kill it. So to be able to be in that position, to be confident about what you're doing, is golden. And music, I would say that music is overshrouded by the mental state that I am in at the time. And to be able to have power over that is very important in order to execute your gift.
That's really good. That's really, really good. So let's talk a little bit about Femme Cape Town. Tell me all about this platform. What is it about? How did it start? What's its purpose? Well, first of all, how did it start? What was it then, and what has it become now?
Okay, so I'm gonna give you a timeline of some sort. I mean,
take us on a journey. There we go.
For a long time, I felt that there has been that it's so much needed to have community amongst female artists in Cape Town. Because I know that I went through the struggle of trying to find female artists to collaborate with, that the default setting was that I had to find a guy to collaborate with. Nothing wrong with collaborating with a guy, but I'm all for, my moral compass is set towards getting female artists exposed within all spectrums, whether you're dancing, whether you're singing, whether you're painting, whether you're taking photographs. And my role, I think my purpose in life is to set that so that to the point where it becomes of equality. So that's been a long time coming. Basically, this has been a long time coming. And the inception of the idea of actually actively starting a platform like this probably started in the beginning of this year. Around the time that I just moved to Cape Town. So I did explain where I come from. I come from Somerset West in Cape Town, small town. And this girl really wanted to get to the big city. So I moved, well, let's put big city in inverted commas.
We'll talk about another big city later on, but yes, we will.
So I moved to Cape Town, like Rondebosch area during the beginning of the year. I got more into the scene there, and this need to create this community just grew even bigger. Like, it expanded so much because I was so surprised to see how much male energy is taking over the industry in Cape Town, more than I even thought. Don't get me wrong, there is like active female energy going on. It's just that it seems to be the emphasis seems to be on the male energy. So I decided we're gonna have to have a conversation about this, and several conversations about this. So when I was attending a birthday, was it a birthday party or just a housewarming, something like that, of my friends from high school, and we all reunited as high school friends there. And one of my high school friends, who just so happens to be in Anine Weimar, was at this party, and I told her about this idea. In fact, our friend Casey connected us again, and we spoke about it, and we're like, wow, this is definitely needed. And the need brought the aspect of this idea of a virtual women's circle. Initially, it was going to be something in person because we obviously pre-lockdown, that context. But now,
back when we could go outside, all of that.
We together we conceived this idea. She brought the idea of a virtual women's circle, and we co-created the platform, which is now Femme Arts Cape Town. And just last night, we've hosted our very first talk called That's a Fact. And if you notice, Femme Arts Cape Town, the acronym is in fact, it's fact.
I saw that, cool.
Great. And we're very excited to put out our very first talk about being a woman in the arts, which will probably come out next week.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
So
what do you think are some of the biggest challenges that females face in the art space, not just in Cape Town but in general? And what sort of steps do we take practically to address these?
I think this might sound, it has obviously to do with history. It has to do with history and how the patriarchal world has put women in a position where we are deemed as incompetent and as inferior. And as much as some people want to deny it, it still happens today.
Yeah.
I can't, for instance, in my personal experiences, my word always gets shut down by the interruption of a man. And you might want to call this perception, but it's happened too often for me not to be able to call it out as it is and interrupt as an interruption. So that, like, the legend of that very staunch patriarchal approach to the world is feeding into all avenues of work, including being an artist around the world. So that is why things like female empowerment groups are around, and things like that. And as our new Miss Universe has said, we need to take space. We need to take space so that we can normalize the presence of females around the world. And Femme Cape Town is the artistic factor into normalizing female presence.
Yeah, that's really good. I mean, I love the fact that you've seen a need, and you've acted on it. You've acted on addressing that need, by starting something. And I know that it's now much bigger than just Cape Town. Now, it initially started off as a Cape Town thing, but I think, as you rightly point out, this is a global problem, right? But I love that you started to address that. And I think don't underestimate the day of small beginnings, right? I think one day we'll be talking about fact, and it'll be.
If I might interject, this is a lot to do. It's not about like women are only important. It's about equality. So when we started Femme Arts Cape Town, it's not just to follow female artists. It's also to gain a male audience so that you can see what we're capable of.
Yes.
Without the interruption of a male, or without things like that. So
I love that. Absolutely love that. So
thanks.
For people who want to check it out, where must they go? What do they need to search on Instagram? What do they need to type into Google? How do they find out more about it?
So we are fundamentally a Instagram platform. Okay. So all you have to type in is the handle at Femme Arts Cape Town. So FEMMEARTS Cape Town. You know how to spell Cape Town. One word, no spaces. Yeah.
Love it. And I would suggest that everybody goes and checks that out. And I wish you all the very best for that venture. I think it's incredibly important. And I think what you're doing is exceptionally inspirational as well.
Thank you. That means a lot.
Let's talk about pop and classical music, right? And so let's talk about your journey and your training. So you, as I understand it, were trained in sort of classical music, but you ventured into pop music as well. Tell me a little bit about the journey and how you got there.
Okay, so I've always been dabbled into both of them. Typically, if you want to learn the violin, in fact, typically, if you wanted to learn any instrument in primary school, then you had to go through a classical curriculum. And so that is where I adopted this knowledge, but also this close relationship to classical music.
Yeah.
But even before that, pre-classical Kirsty, I was listening to a lot of my parents' favorite pop music and R&B music, like Whitney Houston and Anita Baker. And,
the legends,
the diva legends. And I didn't, when I started off even playing an instrument, I remember my uncle bringing a piano to our house, which we have to this day. And I just started learning my own tunes there as if it was nothing, like I just listen. I think my oral skill was very well developed then already, to the point where I could just play anything on the piano that I heard, a melody, maybe not chords or anything, but a melody for sure. So I went through most of my life, I went through a classical curriculum, but on the side, I would be, singing pop music, listening to pop music a lot. And that's also, what a lot of us high schoolers, our peers, were listening to at the time as well. So yeah, it was very much dual, because I could never, it's weird, I could not bring the two together. Because I always felt like they just didn't belong. And I don't think it's partly my perception, but also the way I've been taught about it is that they're, separate entities.
Yes.
And the same was taught when I started studying at Stellenbosch University, when I was studying music composition.
Yeah.
So I did an undergrad and I did a postgrad there, in music composition. And I learned a lot about how music started, how it was documented. It is incredible how classical music composers, and just to clarify, classical is just like the wider scheme of things. You've got denominations of classical, like romantic music, classical, baroque, etc. Okay, lecture done. I always do that as an academic. But anyway, it is incredible, the world that has been built, that has been documented about classical music, and the discipline that goes into being able to master a scale on the violin that is incredibly fast, and that was never shown to me before, actually. Much before studying. So I got to see that part, and I got to learn the discipline of classical music. But in contrast to I wouldn't want to say contrast. I'd want to say that it actually fed me to where I am now, where I am using my classical skill and violinistic skill and my discipline that I've learned through university to execute all these song compositions, I like to call them, which fuse classical composition with pop songwriting. And it's amazing how I've come from viewing it as separate entities to viewing it as something that can actually work together. And I think that actually metaphorically speaks to the world at this moment, during what we're going through in terms of realizing Black Lives Matter and things like that. There is a way of working together. It's just being able to have the same vision at the end of the day. So mine has been very my relationships and perception of pop and classical has been very transformative over the years, and I'm in love with that idea.
So, difficult question, right? Do you find classical music interesting, right? So, and how would you sell this genre to a young person in this generation? And I think the back sort of drop to this question is, the fact that classical music, I think, has a perception, right, that it is not for the young generation, unless you are a musician or unless you dabble in the arts. What would you say to that? I'm quite curious to hear your sort of view and perception on that. And how would you sell this genre to a young person?
I definitely would sell it to them to the point of being able to understand musical intricacy. Because if any genre amongst the genres that exist in the world, I would say that there is a very special intricacy that classical music adopts, that it owns. And the appreciation for patience and time. For instance, if you had to go to a concert, a classical music concert, whether it's in the Cape Town City Hall, whether it's in, at the Met Opera, there is a intricacy and a grandeur to what it takes to put something like that together. First of all, onto paper, and then into performance, and then on top of that, into delivering the performance very convincingly. And when I watch professional violinists perform concertos, then I think, oh my goodness, how did you memorize that? Because I will admit, I cannot memorize something like that. I cannot memorize a musical piece at that length. Unless, of course, I've written it myself. So if anything, I would sell it to them as a performance as a whole. And if I was sitting next to them in that City Hall seat, then I would tell them, do you know where all this music came from? It came from the head. It came from writing it out. It came from accommodating the performer that you're writing it for. It came from accommodating the instrument. And it also came from accommodating the audience as well.
Yeah, I love that. Wow, that's incredible. I'm sold. I mean, I was sold already, but I'm sold now as well. And I'm sure anybody listening to this is as well. Would you say being adaptable as a musician, right? So you obviously kind of weave through different genres, more as a correct term. Would you say being adaptable is an important thing as a musician? Contrast that with someone who is specializing in a particular genre and going for that, right? Versus someone who is able to sort of, weave across different genres.
I think it's very important to have a niche, especially in today's world. But there's nothing. I think it's very important to establish your niche first. And then being able to use that to be able to cross-pollinate. So that when you do cross-pollinate, then you are giving a very concrete identity to whoever you're cross-pollinating with. Because there's nothing as frustrating as, at least not, I guess, collaborating or being someone that is not sure of where they're going. I'm not saying that person that's not sure shouldn't just go for it. I'm just telling you what's most ideal, which is to work towards establishing a niche where you come from. And that's also, I guess, that's understanding where you're coming from, who you are, and then being able to go from there and to confidently sell that whoever you're going to be collaborating with. Does that answer your question?
It does in its entirety. And another question that we had from the Q&A was who is your muse, right? So as a musician, every musician has a muse. Who's yours?
Gosh, I mean, you cannot like narrow it down to one person. But I must say, I must say that, okay, I'm very much influenced by this artist called Laura Mvula.
Okay.
And I start with her because she encapsulates a lot of who I am as a musician. So she studied classical music just like me, and she's been classically trained, and she's also resorted to a more pop terrain of music. And her approach to lyrics is very poetic. I can hear it when she sings. It's poetry. And she also brings a lot of classical instrumentation into her pop music. So I love that. Then I would say, I guess, Debussy.
Yeah.
Claude Debussy, who is a impressionistic composer from the late 19th century. Particularly his pianistic works. I use a lot of piano when I am writing songs, and I find myself meandering these little, like, you know, florid water like utterance like he does. Or did. Let's use the right tense. And then I would say, and someone is going to, like, you know, I guess praise me for this when I say this, but and also a lot of you will be shocked to know that I don't know a lot of Radiohead's music that well.
Yeah.
But when this particular person introduced me to their music, then I was just blown away as to the technique that went into it. But not just the technique, just the overall impression of the composition of their songs. And that's what's influencing a lot of my writing today. And also what I didn't realize is that, you know, a lot of how I write resembles like how they write as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, those, like, I guess the tip of the iceberg of the music.
About 5 or 6, but yeah. No, thank you for that. Thank you very much for that. And I think you know, the person who asked that is probably quite satisfied with the answer.
Oh yes.
Let's talk.
Oh yes.
Let's talk a little bit about NYU, right? So you are planning to study at New York University. Tell me a little bit about this. What's it all about?
Okay, so my degree that I'm going to be studying there is a master's in songwriting, a master's degree in music composition, concentrating in songwriting. Well, and I can literally feel my eyes sparkle, but the department head is Phil Galston, who has worked, who's a producer and a songwriter himself, obviously, and has written for artists such as Vanessa Williams. For those of you that have watched Ugly Betty, you'd know her as Wilhelmina.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing such a cool comment here, future NYU graduate. Thank you, Lady Lenza. So he's very Billboard associated, he's Grammy associated, and some of my friends that are already studying with him have told me how someone like that embraces whichever approach you're coming from as a songwriter and aims to hone that personality or that identity of yours as a songwriter, which is so important, because I find that that sometimes, most of the time, lacks in music institutions sometimes, you know, where educators want to impose their way of learning, and with good reason, I guess, because it treated them well. But to be able to do that and to be able to embrace many styles is like a superpower, and to be able to teach, hone it is even better, a superpower. NYU itself, I've been there. I think in 2018, I went to do a threefold visit to New York, which was to go and do research on a thesis that I was doing about about designing a South African popular music degree, because that doesn't exist in South Africa. Yeah. And then 2, to actually go and look at universities, and 3, also to go and visit friends and family there. So I've been there. It is a magical place. And I went to go do a tour of the place. Its values are very much about speaking up as a student, and being able to embrace diversity, and as well as diversity, many cultures, and justices in the world, which is something I stand by as well. So to have those values aligned with mine is very important. And also because it's in the heart of New York City, where it's really busy and things are happening. I like to tell a lot of people that I think best in a very busy space. The quietness is very deafening, especially now. And I think that's why I'm going insane. So that's
how is the COVID-19 pandemic affected the plans to study at NYU?
So that has been incredibly, I guess, how you put it, like it has been a tear at the, it's been tearing a bit, because it's very difficult to apply for funding. So typically, if you're going to be studying overseas, you have to apply for funding, because the fees are astronomical, especially in a place like NYU. It's a very much, I don't know if you can call it Ivy League, but close to Ivy League university. And you find a lot of celebrities studying there as well. The American celebrities studying there. So lots of foundations have been turning over their bursaries reserved for overseas study over to COVID-19 relief. So that obviously puts a bit of a stagnance in the process, to the point where I've had to put a halt at it, while I try and apply for other ways of creating income and things like that. And as you know, COVID-19 has also impacted careers, especially musicians, because they don't get a chance to they don't get a chance to perform live, and they can't have these performances. So it's a bit of a moot point, but I'm not going to give up. I'm just going to keep going. A lot of people will tell you in these situations that, or a lot of professionals will tell you that there's always money somewhere. You just got to find it.
And I think importantly, a dream delayed is not a dream denied, right? It's just postponed for a little bit, and I'm sure in the future you and I will do another episode of Impactful Conversations, and you will be doing it, taking into account the time zone in New York as well. So it's coming in the future. I'm very sure. Kirsty, to finish off, I've got a couple of quick fire questions for you. And the first one is, what's your favorite song?
My favorite song. Okay. That's another very difficult question. Oh man. Well,
I didn't actually think that was a difficult question, but now that I think about it, it probably is, because I don't know if someone asked me what my favorite song is. I don't know what I'd say, to be quite honest. It's a very okay. Put it this way: what's your favorite song at the moment that you're kind of playing on repeat right now?
Okay, I'll actually mention two because they kind of work in tandem.
Yeah.
It's it's Lady Gaga's song "Rain on Me" with Ariana Grande,
Okay.
but also her also the interlude to the album called Chromatica 1, because it has amazing string, violin and string ensemble lines, orchestral lines to it. Yeah. So two favorites. I think that's fine for me.
Yeah, I like it. I like that. I like that. And the last question is, what piece of advice would you give to a young musician who is listening to the show, or watching the show either live now as we're recording this via the YouTube channel, or listening to the podcast? What piece of advice would you give them?
I would tell them that once they've realized that they are absolutely passionate about music, because music is a difficult path. I'm not going to lie. I'm telling you this now to nip the bud.
Yeah.
It's difficult. But if you believe that you're meant for music, then you need to show the world that you are by practicing every day, by writing your songs every day, whatever it is that you do within music, do it every day and put yourself out there.
That's really good. That's really, really good. Kirsty, thank you so much for coming onto the show. This was so lovely. I think thoroughly educational, but also really inspirational. I think anybody who listens to this will be inspired by your endeavor, inspired by your energy, inspired by how hard you work at your craft. So please don't underestimate the power of your example. So thank you so much for sharing that with us, and for coming onto the show and sharing some of your thoughts. I think this has been exceptional. A little bit different, I think, for me, because I actually haven't interviewed a musician yet. So this is absolutely lovely. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I know we've been talking about this episode for probably the better part of the last sort of 5-6 weeks now. And I've really thoroughly enjoyed it. So a lot of prep went into this episode. So I appreciate your time for that. I would absolutely love for us to do a second episode sometime in the future.
I'm so down for that.
We have unpacked a couple of things, but we haven't, we've touched on the surface of so many things. And I think there's so much more to talk about, so much more to pick your brain on. I think your mind is a wealth of knowledge, and I think we probably haven't actually delved too much into that, and we haven't done it justice in 53 minutes. But I just want to thank you so much for coming onto the show. This has been lovely.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been so nice chatting to you, and I just can't wait to come again.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you, Kirsty. I wish you a lovely weekend further. I also hope that you are staying safe, that you stay healthy, and that you wash your hands and all of those good things as well.
Do the
same. Alrighty, cool. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye.
All right. I hope that you guys enjoyed that. That was quite lovely. I hope that you guys quite enjoyed that. You can catch that episode. It'll probably be up sometime tomorrow on the website. So Impact for Conversations has a website now, which is quite exciting. That's impactforconversations.co.za. You can check it out there. It'll be up tomorrow, so I'll let you know. But tune in for episode 10 next week. It's going to be lovely. It's going to be exciting. And thank you so much for watching. And hope you guys have a wonderful weekend further. Cheers. Bye-bye.